I'll concede your point just for brevity. But
What? Brevity? We don't do that around here. It's probably
No.
Citrus, or what is a Capital One Bowl? It used to be Citrus Bowl, right? Yeah,
oh my
Capital
God,
One.
dude, where have you been?
I just like the real name.
It hasn't been the Citrus Bowl since 2002?
What was your highlight side dish from Thanksgiving?
Oh gosh, Scotch.
This is the Buck Around, the podcast devoted to all things Wisconsin Badger football from a fan perspective. Featuring your hosts, Richard Branch and Maxwell Brusky.
And hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Buck Around. Welcome back to episode 327 of the Buck Around. I am one half of said Buck Around, Richard Branch, and I am joined by my excitable, I don't know what to call you, colleague, Maxwell Brusky. Max, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I think you were looking for unexpectedly happy and joyful.
No, it wasn't that. I had a word before, right before we hit the button, and I forgot what it was. That I said, "Oh, Max, you're very blah, 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 blah tonight." Not blah, but blah, 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 like X, insert the right word.
Bubbly and talkative.
Yeah, but it was not either of those. But you were something, and I wanted that, and then we hit the button, and I forgot. But here we are. You know what's great? We're talking about real football. We're in the playing portion of the season.
Football.
Are you as excited as I am?
Definitely. I think maybe more.
I think so too. I definitely have thoughts tonight. I definitely am glad, I will say right at the top, that we have a bit of a long weekend here for this first game, because it gives some time to process. The Friday night game to then record on a Monday, I think was good for everyone involved.
Yeah. I think so too. And I was thinking about Tuesday is a little bit long.
Yeah.
It's just a tad long.
So it's good that we are here now, and we've had some time for reflection. We've had some time for a rewatch.
Very helpful, I think.
We're a little more healthy. But you know who isn't healthy? A lot of people who called the talk around. Because, as I said right before we hit the red button, I think my favorite part of the talk around is it's one of two things. I have heard this. You haven't heard it yet, right?
I haven't heard the talk around, but I have listened to every call except one Armand.
Okay.
For Maryland. That's the only one I haven't listened to.
Sorry, you have heard the person who decided that they no longer want to listen to podcasts for the rest of the year about Badger football. I like that.
I know.
But my real favorite was someone called for Nick Evers, which I think is amazing, especially in light of the fact he almost died this past weekend. I'm glad that Nick is apparently okay. But
did you happen to pull up his stats at all? I
yes.
mean, I watched. I was looking at the box score, as the game was in progress. What had the plays, the playlist, and I'm like, oh boy,
yeah. He was 6 for 17 with a pick and I think 73 yards passing. I think was I don't remember the yard. I didn't write down the yardage, and he had 12 yards rushing on 4 carries, something like that. So it wasn't exactly a banner.
He didn't even use his legs that much.
No, it was a rough day for UConn against Maryland.
It was, yeah. Maryland's pretty tough, though. I will say that their defense is supposed to be the better part of the team. So
we'll see.
Take that for what it's worth.
For what it's worth. But on that note, why don't we, before we start talking about Maryland and UConn football, which is what brings the people to the yard, why don't we hit the talk around and you and I can get into this game?
All right, and here we go.
Hey man, love your guys' show, but this team sucks so bad. So I'm not going to be listening to any University of Wisconsin football podcasts or anything anymore. Have a good year, guys.
John in San Francisco.
David in Wisconsin Rapids.
Steve from Portland.
Tyler from Green Bay here.
Huge Jack and Coke fan after this debacle. Also, I'm now the founding member of the Elijah Hills fan club because he was a beast. I think more of the same has me hitting the sauce pretty heavy here, but I think the biggest takeaway from today's game is that Tim Browndow performed far worse than anything that we saw on the field, and Devin Gardner is just weird. I know Rich doesn't talk about announcers anymore, but I'll carry that torch.
We got to bring back Chris.
Tyler Van Dyke. Well, I've never liked Tyler Van Dyke, and after tonight, I still don't. And is there anybody watching who didn't know that there was going to be a fake field goal? Just asking for a friend.
I think I've reached the point where I'm basically tuning in just to hate watch the team. Like, it gives me some bizarre sense of satisfaction to know that I was right to be pessimistic about them in the first place. It's a very bizarre place to be. It's going to be a long season, unfortunately.
If you're going to run the quarterback as much as apparently they want to, why run Nick Evers out of town? Give him the ball if you want to run it so much, instead of getting a guy who can launch it downfield and then never throw the ball downfield. That doesn't make any sense. Why is there still no pressure on the quarterback until the fourth quarter? Again, just tons of questions that a lot of stuff that just doesn't add up, doesn't make sense. But tonight's performance wasn't acceptable. If this same thing happens in 2 weeks, they're going to get absolutely boat raced by Alabama.
On Wisconsin.
Go Badgers. Hopefully.
Hopefully? I didn't detect a lot of hopefully in there.
No, there was not a lot of hope in there.
Oh, man. Well, hopefully at the end of this, we can eat less Arby's. And Rich, I can't believe you didn't remember those. But hey, man, what are you going to do? I mean, this was high existentialism.
Yeah, so...
A lot of black pills out there.
Let me tell you, I was not feeling it. Like, I was pretty clear, I think, with my feelings during that game.
The Prince of Darkness returned halfway through the first quarter.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was real quick.
Goodness.
Didn't take long for me to get down. And I have rewatched the football game.
Okay.
And, you know, with a certain degree of emotional detachment, which I think is always healthy and helpful for all of us.
Hey, that's your role in this show.
And so, you know what? Let me start with this. You know why I'm the Prince of Darkness? Like, do you know why I am the way I am with football? Like, I hate getting hoodwinked. Like, I hate getting sold a bill of goods. Like, that's really what it is. Like, it's me to here. You know what? We're gonna do a little Freudian stuff with. Well, it's not Freudian, but let's get in Rich's head.
We're talking black pills and go for it, like, man. Yeah, there's a lot of psychology at play. Especially you heard those voicemails.
Yes, like I am feeling hurt, and it's the reason I have always been the Prince of Darkness is I need to keep this team at arm's length so they don't hurt me, Max. Like, I am the one, like, I have done enough in sports to know the self-flagellation of fandom. Like, I don't need it. Like, so let's just not build up the hype. I went into this year telling myself, like, there were certain things that I thought were going to happen. I was like, oh, there's a lot of issues with this team. But then by August, it was like, well, I think they might have some things sorted out, and it's going to come around. And it didn't. But having watched the game again and again with that emotional detachment a little bit, I can at least, I feel like, point at a few things that I say, oh, that's why I feel the way I do. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around like how alarmed I should be about them, because I think some of them are also functions of that was a very peculiar football game, right?
I don't know that it was, but
I do. I mean, the Badgers had 8 possessions. The Badgers had 8 possessions in that football game, right?
Yeah. Somebody was talking about, like, my friend, hashtag bring back Chris. We heard it on the talk around, which wasn't even my friend, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else. And our prop bet, Andy Schaff, even tweeted something along those lines. I can't tell if that was just gadflydom, but
I think that might have been a little bit of a just to see how people would react.
But if you wanted to bring back Chris, this is a pretty Chris-esque kind of game.
It was very much a Chris game. I mean, 16, 15, 14 play drives. Yeah.
Yeah. And on my rewatch, I kept, well, by the way, it was like, what? They haven't had multiple 15 play drives in a game in like 10 years or something like that?
Yeah. And they had
like
2.
Yeah, 2.
And then 2 with 14.
2 with 14. Right. I know. It's talk about ball control, but I'm thinking exactly that. And, for everybody, if you, it's air raid, you change it to the dairy raid, whatever it is, it's different from what Chris ran. And like, if you liked that kind of football, if you wanted that back, it was given to you.
It was served up.
It was served up. So,
yeah.
let's think about that for a minute. The other thing, and the point I want to make to you about being the Prince of Darkness, and I think everybody is in this boat unless you are a journalist, okay? Which it's a tough job. There has to be a lot of emotional detachment. That's one of the main jobs of a reporter, not a columnist, but a reporter, okay? What the hell do you know about this team going into this season that wasn't reported to you by somebody else? You didn't see the practices. You weren't there. None of us were there. I mean, one thing we have to say it all the time about our shows. We don't have press credentials. I think, we tried one time, but you can't be at media availability. You can't guarantee yourself there. So they're like, no, we're not giving you free tickets, which, I think that's a good move. I get it, but we're in the same boat as everybody else. So if you were hoodwinked, why were you hoodwinked? And if the only reason for that is because you're reading practice reports and you're reading things, right? I don't think, no. So I'm not done yet. All right. And this is what I said. There was somebody who tweeted about this, and I don't know if it was, one of the trillions of responses to everybody knocking off Jim Polzing's "How are we feeling, Badgers fans?" tweets, right? The tweet, and then everybody responds. But it was something like talking about journalistic malpractice. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, well, do you want to blame them, or are you going to blame their acumen? Because are they intentionally trying to mislead you? Did they mislead you? And then you start thinking of all this of the whole concept of sports journalism or whatever. But it all goes back to the point: if you're going to be hoodwinked, what are you basing it on?
Here, I'll tell you one.
Sure.
And it was one that I've been sort of toying with. And it was glaring in this game. Was the wide receiver room is basically the same, right? They brought in 2 transfers, one of whom in Terrell Henry did not play a scrimmage snap. So
he did not, and he was dressed. And I saw him
buried.
The camera showed him at one point in a huddle.
Yeah, he was on special teams. So he can't beat any of the the guys that were there. The ones that we all know, the incumbents. Number 2 was then after spring, which really that's the canary in the coal mine, I think, with that position group that we really should have been more attuned to. Like, this is a bad, post spring transfers are a different story. They are a sign of, oh man, we've run these guys through 15 practices and we still have a problem. It's very different than a December transfer. It was Joe Griffin, the Boston College guy, who came in, we never really heard about in fall camp, and apparently didn't even dress, because he definitely didn't play a snap. And I think it was Colton or one of those guys was like, he's not warming up with the team. So
the one of those guys too that I didn't see dressed was Quincy Burrows. I saw him on the sideline and he had his jersey on, but he was not dressed to play.
Yeah, but he was at least reported out.
I think
3 hours before the game. You know what I mean?
He was. Yes, I do.
So
I forgot. Yeah.
That at least adds up. But they went out, they added 2 guys who didn't end up doing anything. But if you're adding 2 wide receivers, it means you think you need something. And that was obvious to me in that game, because you have basically 3 guys at wide receiver who I think are worth their salt in Will Pauling. I don't know which one I'd put second right now. I think I put Bryson Green second, and then Tretch third. Because I just think Bryson is a little more disciplined with it. But Tretch is on the, you can project out, that guy's going to be a really good player the more he plays.
Every time he touched the ball, it was freaking electric. It was noticeable.
He does some quite frankly, he scares the you-know-what out of me on the kick return. I don't know why he's taking a ball 7 yards deep from the end zone or fumbling. He got lucky there when he fumbled that one, but then recovered it. But you take, I guess, theory there is you're taking the good with the bad for a young player who clearly brings some pop and some energy. But the rest of them, CJ Williams he dropped 2 balls, and the rest of the time just isn't getting open.
Right.
And Vinny Anthony is there. Seems kind of willing, but
if you read a racing form, at the track, and they talk about a horse's performance in the, they kind of give a single word or single sentence recap of what the, last performance was or the previous performance was. And a lot of times you see non-factor. That was the thing that stood out to me enormously.
Yeah.
On the rewatch, I don't know what Vinny Anthony's doing on the field. And if he's going to do the nothing that he did here, because he wasn't even targeted, he wasn't thrown to. I'm sure he's
I think he had
part of,
one,
not that
didn't he?
I
Wasn't it
just watched
early?
it.
But I mean, it wasn't a lot, to your point. Yeah.
I didn't see it. If he did, then great, but I didn't see it. And if that's going to be the case, then what are you doing with Tyrell Henry? And what are you like, or Chris Brooks, who was on the depth chart finally, And I guess to me, the thing that, and this kind of goes with my take on the overall theme of the game, is I think they were just very, very conservative with so much. I mean, I don't know why that is. I don't know,
Yeah.
but that's just what stood out to me. And I think what Fickle did say in the post-game conference was like, we were taking what the defense was giving us. And honestly, most of that execution, it got really scary in that possession after the fake field goal. Like if the fake field goal and the touchdown and Western Michigan takes the lead right before the freaking jump around, the stadium was like I'm glad I wasn't there. I would have had, I would have probably finished the 2 drinks I bought before they cut the drinks off. Wherever I was sitting, but definitely in the south end zone, I'd have probably drank them all right then and there. But the energy was so bad on that possession, and I think they got a nice miracle play and capitalized on it. And I think from there on, I thought they kind of went back to how they've been playing the whole game, because if for the most part they were in control of the game, just weren't scoring. I mean, if I missing a field goal on that opening drive after all that, I mean, that's just kind of like, and that opening drive, I don't know if the Prince of Darkness returned during that opening drive or after the fake field goal. I'd have to go back and piece it together with the clock. But other than that, I mean, the most of the offensive execution was pretty good. I mean, they did just about everything what they wanted to do, or if they were taking what the defense was giving them. Van Dyke made a couple bad throws, didn't pay for them, but he made a couple. But for all the bad ones he made, there were a couple really, really good ones.
So well, here, let's do this, because I did put it on the agenda, and I was you did a good job, actually. You circled us back, because I just started rambling about wide receivers. Like, in terms of, I was sort of trying to figure out, like, what was I comfortable or uncomfortable with on this team, and say just with the offense. There was a couple of things that I was actually pretty comfortable with. I thought the offensive line looked pretty solid overall. I mean,
I think so too.
Van Dyke's sacks and pressure, sack singular and pressures were all coverage related. They were like 6-second,
they were.
He was on the ball for a long time. It was not on the line getting overpowered. It was not on the pass pro. The pass pro was there. I think by and large, even though their numbers weren't great, it's mostly because Ches had 2 bad runs. I think Ches lost 9 yards on 2 carries or something like that, where they got blown up.
Both in red zone.
Both in red zone.
And goal to go.
Yeah. But overall, I thought the running game was pretty good. And quite honestly, I thought the way they cycled and used personnel was pretty creative. I mean, we're not going to talk prop bets tonight because we're still pulling it all together. But I mean, the 3 running back prop bet that I think at that point I hadn't done my flip to, I'm actually going to say what I think, and I went against what I thought, and I think I picked the 3 running backs, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So
I hope I did. I'm pretty sure I did too.
Winner.
That one sure didn't take long, did it?
It took like 7 snaps.
I know.
And we had 3 back, we got to see 3 backs on the field. And it's like, oh, okay.
Oh.
So I felt like they were doing their best.
Rich, 2 running backs in the field at once. Max, yes. Rich, yes. 3 running backs in the field at once. Max, yes. Rich, no.
I think that's where I broke. Was that like the 4th question?
I think it was. No, it was 11.
Oh, then I was already broken at that point. I can't believe I said no. Damn it.
And they did it a couple times too.
Max, it's going to come back every week.
It's not only that. I'm not going to go back and say Andy missed anything, but 3 tight ends on the field.
A lot.
Multiple times.
I know.
I mean, if you this, there were so many Chris-like plays, and if I don't know, I just wish I would have had my head about me because I would have responded to my friend, and I would have responded to everybody else saying, "Dude, Chris is back. Have you watched? Have you watched what they're doing? There was all kinds of pre-snap motion.
I know.
There was Will Pauling didn't do jet, but he did out of the slot, running through the backfield several times. I mean, there was
know.
so much Chris there,
But-
which is I don't. What do you make of that?
Well,
So I almost wonder if like Lago's like, well, that's what these people want. I'll give it to them.
I don't think it's that at all.
No, I know. No. I'm joking. I know it's not that, but
what I think it is. So here's my thing. Where I am left with real concern on offense, like I knew the wide receivers were going. I shouldn't say I knew. I was like, they didn't really bring anything in, and I'm not hearing Terrell Henry or Joe Griffin's name. They're not great. Will Pauling continues to be Will Pauling. Tretch is gonna play more, and you see that, but it's gonna be weird. Like I don't know how you're gonna get both of them on the field at the same time a ton because they're kind of similar play. They did it. I mean, they did it on the 2-point, right? But they're going. I mean, how much are they gonna go 4 wide? I don't know how much they want to go 4 wide
on the 2-point play. I mean, that thing had Paul Christian all over it too.
All right. I mean, it just looked like. I mean,
no,
to me,
you're right. You sweep a guy through the backfield twice, clear out the linebacker.
Yeah. I mean, you're selling what they were doing there. I actually will give Devin Gardner credit, which, yes, I guess I'm not supposed to talk about announcers anymore, but I could talk about Tim Brando all day because that man is getting weirder every year. The whole thing we was talking about swinging in the beginning.
I know.
And it was just the awkward silence.
I love Timmy B, man, but
no,
dude,
you can't. He's getting so strange.
There's a time when I would have been happy to hang out in the Chateau Brando, and I don't know if you remember his Sirius XM show.
Max, you don't want to hang out in Tim Brando's house because first off, don't accept a drink from Tim Brando is my only piece of advice.
That's what I was just going to say.
Bring your own cocktails.
It's not that
in
I would
cans.
It's not that I would even stop by. That's a no for me, dog.
I don't know what he was talking about. He's like, Devin, they swing, the Wisconsin swing. And he says it, and you're like, I was I was ready to run. Anyways, but we're getting off topic here. The thing that I was trying to reconcile that I'm having an issue with is, quite frankly, Tyler Van Dyke scares the crap out of me right now. Because if you want to say they were taking what the defense was giving them, that's kind of been the point. Okay, like I knew Tyler Van Dyke was going to make some dumb throws. Like that has been my basic premise. Like he was the 25-10 guy. He's going to throw some picks.
Yeah.
You saw him try to throw some picks in this game. Like everybody did, especially in the red zone. He was frightening, quite frankly, in the red. But
missed guys that were open too. They're like on those plays, there were guys that were open.
Totally. Like you could see him on the backside.
On the first one in the red zone, Nowakowski was wide open at the goal line.
And he's open. Like there isn't. And so you're hitting right on my point. The thing that made me frightened, or like the proposition where I bought into Van Dyke that I didn't get, was that it was like, okay, he's going to throw some picks, but it's a big NFL arm. And he did show you on the one throw. I think it was to Tretch, that one where he went from the opposite hash. And
100%.
It's a dart 10 yards.
There's maybe 20 guys in college football that could make that throw.
Exactly. And you're like, well, that's an NFL arm. Like that is an NFL arm. And then he follows that up with, the ball that bounces off of 3 Western Michigan receivers defenders in the end zone that should have been picked off.
Sure.
But the issue I had was I did not see how that guy was going to use his arm. He had one decent throw down the field to Bryson Green that was just, a half step too far, sort of on a fade route.
It was also good coverage too. And it was the kind of coverage that didn't it wasn't Bryson Green is slow or something like that, where that corner, that corner was pretty good too, I thought. But it's not that he kept up with him. It was bump and run from the beginning, and it was physical the whole route. It was that kind of situation. I thought, and the way that Green ran it, he got too close to the sideline and he had nowhere to go. You know what I mean? So but the throw was good. And on the rewatch, it actually reminded me of that Cephas one that Jack Cohn had against Minnesota. It was like the same. Like almost the same play,
like where it's like
a same kind of rainbow
where it sort of hangs in.
Right, yeah, yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I didn't see that, But like,
I don't know. Van Dyke didn't really scare me as much as I thought. Those were some bad throws. I get that, but I think there was so much more good in there.
well, Max, I'm nowhere near you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, if he's going to have 5 picks against Alabama if he plays like it. But my struggle is this. He has a big arm. I never saw him stretch the field. And I don't want to
No.
I don't want to hear about, well, they played 3 deep. Yeah, okay. Well, that doesn't work for me, because all I saw was
there was
my
that
problem
one throw.
It
that
was
it.
That was that one, but then the other where he threw deep, but the problem was his read was different than the receivers.
Yeah.
He had the one where Pauling was in the slot and kind of bends in, and maybe he thought CJ Williams was going to kind of run a post into it, maybe, but Pauling turns around and throws the hands up.
He did.
And on 3 of them, I see Pauling do the same thing where the hand turns around and he's like, what's going on? I trust Will Pauling to know where he's supposed to be over Tyler Van Dyke at this point, because Tyler Van Dyke looked like a guy who didn't really know what was going on. And I'm telling you, I think against a good defense, he's going to get killed. Like, he can't do what he did. He's got to get way better in a week. I need to see a guy who can actually work through a progression, because he was a one-read guy, and that was it. Like, it was very scary to me. And then it's forcing the ball into coverage. And then, I mean, the surest sign to me was his touchdown, where I thought he just took the snap and then everybody was kind of covered in his mind. So he ran and he was able to sort of fall into the end zone. That he said in the postgame, that was a quarterback draw. That was designed that way. And I just feel like
he did.
Yeah. They said, that was the way the play was written up, and that's how we did it. And it's like, ooh, like there wasn't a comfort level with them to let him throw the ball.
Yeah. Which is also Chris-esque.
He does not fill me with confidence right now, because that just looked like a guy who wasn't comfortable with what was doing. And again, it's not all on him, because I think a lot of those receivers aren't bringing them a lot. I mean, I think the fact that like Vinny Anthony and CJ Williams are basically splitting time. Like, if you looked at the snap count, I mean, Bryson Green had the most at 67.
Yeah.
Out of, I think they had 80, I forget how many. It was 80 something offensive snaps. It was Green, then Pauling with 63, and then Anthony 46, and then CJ with 34, and Tretch at 17. And I feel like Anthony and CJ Williams are going to be losing snaps in lieu of Tretch somehow, just because he at least found a way to get open in a way that those two weren't. But bottom line, Tyler Van Dyke frightens me. He can run. That's the one thing I will say. That dude, and I don't just mean he can run, he can pull the ball in a way that has you following the back. Like, he's really good on play action. He's really good on the zone reads where he pulls it. And then he even had that nice little zone read option to Ashcraft that I was impressed by.
That was a nice play.
He's got some warts that frighten me, and I think they're going to bite them in the ass. Pardon my language.
Yeah, no, I'm not. That's not unreasonable at all. I wouldn't disagree. It doesn't weird me out as much because Couch quarterback. I get it. I mean, it's not like, I don't know. You and I were talking about watching the Notre Dame game, and I didn't watch much of it because it really was boring. But I mean, I'd like to see how good Riley Leonard was. Like, he had an offensive line that had 10 combined starts or something like that against Texas A&M.
Right.
So it's probably hard to judge a little bit, but he had a lot. Notre Dame has better receivers than Wisconsin does, and I wonder how he was. And I say that just because it's new. Like, he's new. The situation's new. Even if it's not a totally new offense, it's a new coach. And I think it's also like, I don't know, I'm sure Camp Brando was pretty close to sold out. I mean, that's got to be at least a little intimidating. I mean, he'd been playing for 4 years. I get it, but I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for the guy because, everything you just explained, I wouldn't disagree with any of it. I just didn't even when I was watching it and especially on the rewatch, I thought he had pretty decent command most of the times. That drive after the fake field goal touchdown and before the punt, the punt gift, it looked really discombobulated, and that was really concerning.
I mean, I guess here I'll leave it at this, because like there were certain things that sent a message to me. The two things that it made me say this guy is not comfortable with what's going on was, one, everything was the initial read. It was the initial read, or he held the ball for an hour. The other part was, as he's making these reads, he is backpedaling constantly. That dude was throwing the ball from 12 yards deep from the line of scrimmage repeatedly. I mean, he is in a shotgun and then he is dropping 7 more yards. And it's just the back pedal. And then there's more than once where it was a panic throw off the back foot as he's backpedaling away from a defender after he's held the ball for 6.5, 7 seconds. And it just, oh man, like those are those intangible things that tell me that's a guy that is not comfortable with what he's trying to do. And I got it. Here's what I'm going to say. Here, ready for my bold prediction?
Sure.
I have to see him play significantly better against South Dakota next week. Like a lot more command of the offense, the ability to use that arm and go vertical in some way for him not to then get just absolutely lit up by Alabama. Like I think this Tyler Van Dyke would have thrown 5 picks against Alabama. Like he would have gotten destroyed. And I'm going to say right now, like if he doesn't show progression, I think you're going to have real conversations there internally after the Alabama game. Do we make the switch and at least go with Brady?
At least see. Yeah.
Because it's not that Braden Locke's going to be any better, but it's like, this isn't giving us anything right here. Like this is not happening because what he brings to you, which is the big arm, but maybe some questionable throws, like you're not getting the big arm. Like you got the big arm on one throw and it was for a 10-yard gain because he threw it across the field late. That's so I don't mean to harp on him all day, but like he is my point.
One of the biggest parts of the game that you could see that stands out, especially the downfield stuff. So no, I think that those are the most disconcerting things.
Yeah, I mean, because I am not the guy. I mean, I was always the guy back in the Stavi days who was like, look, he's a part of it, right? But this one, like, it screams it to me. This is the first time it really screams it to me where it's like, wow, that's a quarterback who in that game was not giving them anything, was not getting them anywhere they need to be.
So the other part of that I think you've successfully diffused, if that's the right way to categorize it, is, holding back for anything in the future. And I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it. And I would say rope-a-dope is cope.
Yeah, I don't buy that at all. Yeah.
I thought about it for a little while and I'm like, no, that don't make any sense. Especially if you're like down in the fourth quarter, like, dude,
exactly.
You need to win. And not only that, like, what the hell's the point? Like, why? Who cares? Like, if you could show that your receivers are going to separate and you can throw bombs,
exactly.
Why wouldn't you do it?
I mean, the whole offense is predicated on receivers running to space, and they were not getting to space. Like it wasn't happening.
Except for a couple.
Right.
A couple times.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they were not separating, and he wasn't throwing to the separation. Like. To your point, like nobody's like, well, hopefully let's be tight with Western Michigan going into the fourth, and then we'll just power out. Like, no, get out of here. I mean, in the post game, Fickle was very transparent. He didn't say it, but was like, we had plans to play some guys who didn't play because we weren't in the spot in the game we thought we were going to be, which is we thought we were going to be blowing them out, and we were going to run out the young running backs, and that kind of thing. So. No, that wasn't there. But enough offense. We're 30 minutes in, and we haven't even touched on the defense. We haven't even talked about the defense.
True enough. True enough. But I think I think more of the angst came from what happened on offense. I think.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. There's plenty to go around on defense too, but I think that's where most of it came from. And most of it being like you said, I thought I was going to get something different.
Yep.
This looks the same. In fact, it looks the same as Chris.
It just didn't look good. But you know what? So defense.
Yeah.
I'll start positive. They have really good corners. Like they have an insanely deep cornerback room. And I'm not just talking about getting excited about what's his face, Lucas, with his pick. I'm leaving that alone.
So check. No, that's fine. It speaks for itself. It was
right.
He was in on the last series. It was an awesome play. That's it. And he's going to be a stud. I think everybody knows that.
Well, he's also huge.
He's
You're like, wait, that's an 18-year-old?
Yeah, really. It's like Ohio State, Alabama. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because he looks like that on the touchdown drive that Western Michigan had after Wisconsin scored. The long Hallman sat that whole thing out.
So Forkery played more snaps than Hallman.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that when I was watching it. I didn't realize that until the rewatch, and I saw 2 on the sideline. I went to the camera angles. I'm like, okay, what's going on here?
So are you sure he didn't play any of them?
I'm 99% certain. Yeah. I don't think it hurt them either. What happened on that drive? It wasn't because their best quarterback was not on the field.
Yeah, no, I noticed in the Pro Football Focus numbers, Fort Greene had 44 snaps. Fort Greene had 44 snaps. Rico had 37.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, wow, how did he have more snaps than him? And then Lofi had 31. And then the one that surprised me is Delancey only had 19. Like Lofi has jumped him, and Delancey is sort of spelling Rico and then playing a little nickel was basically what he was doing. Like,
that's what it looked like to me, right?
Like he took
he's
Austin
better
Brown's
boundary
snaps.
guy, I guess. Yeah, right.
But I was kind of well, that drive, like again, this goes back to that, like when the game gets compressed and gets weird. Like Western Michigan's touchdown, was that the one where they threw to the back for 26 yards? Yeah, that was the one. And that was just because Zachman blitzes. And it's just the worst situation where the running back is running a wheel right to where the blitz came from. And then it's 25 yards downfield.
Yeah.
That happens. Like I had zero concerns with the secondary. I think the safeties, I feel like the safeties after Wohler, I mean, I think it's interesting Kamoi Latu did not play a snap. Latu did not play a snap.
I think it's interesting that Latu didn't play a snap and Brown didn't play that much because Brown, other than a special teams play, because I think he played and plays on every single special teams unit, which I'm totally fine with because he's one hell of an athlete. And you know, his fumble recovery saved the game, or change, you know, I shouldn't say save the game, changed the game. But Brown, I don't know. I thought he'd be further ahead of when he was, but it still looks like, all right, you're gonna we're gonna put you on the side for a little while.
He had two big screw ups. Yeah. Right. He had that one. It was a long run where he just slows down and then the back kind of runs by him and gets another 10. I think it was a run. It might have been a catch, but like he takes a funny angle and then he stops his feet and the Western Michigan player just blows by him. And then the other one was the missed tackle on that swing pass that got him a first down.
That's the one
and then after that missed tackle, they basically put him on the bench. I think he came back a little bit in the fourth quarter, but that was about it. But yeah, no, the secondary.
But the other part of that though is it's not like Latu came in after he went out.
No, I mean, so the only thing is Latu was in a non-contact jersey for a lot of camp, so we don't know where he's at. But
that's true.
So who knows? But I still feel like I don't know.
I think if Brown got limited after two not great plays, I have to think if Latu was fully available, they would have used him.
Yeah, but
I would have to think so.
They just
what he can do.
But they just leaned into Zachman and Lofi, right? I mean, that's kind of the way they did it. And they just said, Lofi, you're going to play every nickel snap. And he did perfectly fine. But I am kind of curious to see what happens with Latu. But going to linebacker then, I have to say, you know who looked really good? That is a very familiar face to me. Jake Chaney. That dude looked faster.
He looks like a boss.
He looked more athletic, which I think it's just he's more comfortable. Like he just looks like he really took a step forward. I mean, because he's not a big dude. He's never going to be a big dude. But he was around the ball more than he has ever been before. He just looked faster and more comfortable.
Yeah, and I don't think there was maybe a player to... There was one that Brando or Devin Gardner, went back and rewound and noticed that like Jaheim Thomas missed a run fit. Other than that, I didn't really see a heck of a lot of out of position stuff. Even when I rewatched it, I mean, the plays where Western Michigan made big gains there was blocking was really effective. And the design of the play was good and it was executed properly, and the guys that needed to beat a guy did. Whereas I just didn't see anybody that really screwed up that much. You know what I mean? Like nobody was like that. And Chaney's the guy, he's the guy who's got the headphone.
Right.
So, I mean, to your point, there's that too. Daryl Peterson, he didn't really make that standout plays. He played a lot. And as far as his body goes, his body looks bigger, I thought. There was a kind of a close-up of him, and I was like, oh man, that dude. I used to think of him as really skinny, and I'm like, dude, you don't look like no pass rusher to me. You're like a smaller version of Leonard Floyd who gets a lot of sacks in the NFL, but I still think that dude's a beanpole. And that's what Peterson always reminded me of last year. He doesn't look like that now.
He looks more like Aaron Witt. Like he's more into that sort of width and thickness of frame. But you kind of led me into the one part that I was a bit like, before we get to the part that really frightened me. And the outside linebackers, I'm going to be dead honest with you, underwhelmed in this. Like, I did not see any they didn't generate pressure. They really
did not.
And I know Western Michigan was in max, but like there was a lot of 3-player routes, like a lot of 8-man, 7-man protections, that kind of thing. But
I'd like to see more.
Like they were rushing, but even when they rushed 4 against, say maybe 5, they weren't getting in. They were not getting in. And Peterson, like I was looking at the numbers, Peterson played 40 snaps, and then Lowry and Pius each played, I think it was 27 and 26 respectively. So Peterson was obviously the A1, or the 1A as they like to say, and then they let the other two sort of like, they would cycle him between those two. I did not see a lot of, like, I saw a really nice tackle from Pi, like in the run game. I saw a couple nice plays from those guys, which I guess is a good sign because they were mostly pass rushing guys, but I did not see much in the pass game. But I did see Aaron Witt play very well. I will say in limited snaps, I don't know that I necessarily want to see him play a ton in the role they have him in, but he's a guy like, I think you could find a way to to make him work. And the other guy who he's not my under the radar player of the game, but he was very under the radar. Christian Allegro was a beast in the snaps he played. If you go back and watch that game again,
if he's not your under the radar player of the game, is he like your runner up under the radar player of the game?
He's
definitely my runner up under the radar player of the game.
He would be.
He's mine.
He would be. He's on the short list, right? He's a finalist for sure because he was nasty. But the one area I did have real concerns in this game, and it never was good. And this is one where it's like, I fear about this down the line against better teams. The defensive line was really bad. I mean, it was really bad. Like the number of snaps, and like it's funny you mentioned that one where Devin Gardner talked about Thomas being out of position or not filling. It's like, no, it's not that he didn't fill. The defensive line got pushed outside the hashes.
Away. Just totally washed away.
The number of snaps where the defensive line is outside the hashes or they have their backs to the line, it was bad. I mean, it was, that really frightened me. Like Elijah Hills, I know he got that sack and he actually looked okay. I don't know if he can play every snap, but I think he's going to jump Cade McDonald next week because Cade McDonald had, legitimately a really bad football game. And I don't know what they do there because Kurt Neal comes and goes with it. And then again is like, he's there, when they paint the big logo, the B1G logo outside the hashes, the number of times I'm like, wait a minute, he was like the left defensive tackle and now he's on outside the right hash with his back to the line of scrimmage and he's standing on that logo. You're like, he just got pushed 7 yards.
Man.
And
jeez.
The line was rough. The line is rough. Like the defensive line is rough.
It was my biggest concern going into the season. It remains my biggest concern. And I think maybe that's not why I'm freaking out. I should freak out because it's even worse than I thought.
Yeah.
And then
I don't know what
losing Thompson doesn't help. Obviously, I don't know how much difference it would have made or it will make, but
it's a great question.
Losing him doesn't really help. But I mean, did anybody think? I know we certainly didn't. Did anybody think this wasn't the weakest spot on the whole team?
No, but I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think Western Michigan's offensive line would be blasting those guys out of the hashes.
No,
I would expect in this game. I would expect in this game the defensive line. I don't expect a push. Just stand your ground. Like I thought they'd stand. They were not standing their ground, and none of them could get off a double team. I mean, that's the other part is they were just getting driven, and then the guard is just pulling off to go wherever he wants. Now, again, Western Michigan didn't get a lot out of it because they played their whole offensive game plan was very strange to me. But they almost threaded the needle.
They lost Womack in the last. Like at the very last second.
Yeah.
And I think that probably changed a little bit of it. But but you're right. You're right. I mean,
but it was like this Max Pro pass game.
Yeah.
And they really didn't get much in the run game. Like people are not realizing like 26 of their yards are from a kicker on a fake field goal. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of
I do. The numbers weren't they weren't. They're not catastrophic if you didn't watch the game and just looked at the rushing numbers for Western Michigan, you'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
I thought Wisconsin would have held them to a little bit more, but
Yeah.
the fake field goal was the long run of the game, right?
Yeah, 26
Yeah.
yards. I think
Yeah.
they had another one, unless that was the catch that was like 25. I can't remember. I have it in front of me. Here, you know what? I'll tell you. I do have it in front of me. No, it was the catch that was 24. Buckley had that catch where Zachman blitzed on the first touchdown. So yeah, it was a 26
No.
yard
I'm not
rush.
talking about long play. I'm talking about long run.
No, I know. I was saying I thought maybe they had another one. They had a 17-yard run from Buckley, but I thought the 20-something might have been a run, but no, that was the pass where he beat Zach. But no, I mean, to me, like, these games are always about what do you project forward? And, again, not trying to read too much into it, but like the defensive line, if the defensive line can't make a stand against Western Michigan and the outside linebackers aren't adding enough, that we like the way you described it, I thought was, back in spring was the best way to put it, which was like, look, they're trying to build a defense that requires the defensive line to be as minimally impactful as possible. Right? Given the nature of the position that you can, but there's a limit to it. And you're seeing that when I feel like the guys on the edge aren't plus guys. I mean, Daryl Peterson isn't a plus guy. I mean, he's fine, but he's not a plus guy. And the other two so far haven't shown me more than Daryl Peterson. And I don't know what you do there. Like, I kind of wonder, like, they used, like, when Hills got the sack on the last drive, they were playing one D line. That was a one down lineman set. It was Hills, and then Daryl Peterson was lined up as like I don't remember what it was, like a 4 or a 5 tech. And I forget who was on the other side. I think it was another lineman. It was only one down lineman. It was 4 linebackers, but like a 1-4-5 look they were doing.
But it's also that kind of look that you would have at that point in the game.
Right.
Too. Yeah.
And so, but my question was like, I've seen Aaron Witt enough that I feel like Aaron Witt could find a way to be a little more stout. Maybe. I don't know.
Sure.
Give him a try, because I feel like you could shift those guys, because you actually in a weird way have a little depth out there. But yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Again, man, defensive lines win championships, and this one's not championship level.
They're not winning the championship. But all right, so before we leave the game and go to our players of the game, I have a list of names I want to go through, and we can talk about our surprise level, whether or not these guys played. Because there are some names here. These guys didn't play a snap from scrimmage, I'm going to say, just to clarify. They may have played some special teams. Again, we were waiting on special team snap numbers. But first off, Brandon Lane did not play a snap.
Did you see him on the sideline?
I did not during the game, but I'm broadcast.
I didn't. So. No, I know. Yes, I am very surprised given what the line looked like. That if you're going to give Dylan Johnson 6 snaps, and I don't know when that was. Was that that last series?
Goal line when they went to 5 defensive line. They were running a 5 D line look, and he was out there. So all those short. By the way, if you want something to crow about on this defense, they were really good in that situation. I mean, they had a lot of short yardage stops. They had 3 at the line, and then that 4th and short. Those were big stops. So,
and you say they didn't have a tackle for a loss in the game until the sack, but they had lots of short plays.
Yeah.
And actually, they did stop him on the goal line, but he called the timeout.
I know.
How terrible is that? It's just like, you got to be kidding me.
I know. All right, so Brandon Lane did not play snap. I wonder if that's an injury. But
that's what I was getting at.
All right. Joseph Griffin did not dress.
We've already talked about that.
I'm also not surprised by that one, to be honest. Terrell Henry played special teams.
That one like I said, if you're going to have Vinny Anthony not targeted, if you're going to have him be out there and play that many snaps, I mean, at least at some point wouldn't. And again, I don't know. I don't know. I don't watch practice. I have no freaking idea. But I would think just because Vinny Anthony didn't, he was just a non-factor as far as I could tell. Wouldn't you have Terrell Henry do that? Because Terrell Henry does have lots of in-game Big Ten experience too, right?
We talked about Latu. Amari Snowden.
Nah, not really.
No? Okay.
No, he's a true freshman. If there's, if he's not like Xavier Lucas, there's no need to chalk up a game on him. And he, like you said, he plays in a position where they have a lot of depth already. So no, that one doesn't surprise me.
No.
He was dressed though. I mean, he could have played.
Jackson McGohan.
Only a little bit because he's not a true freshman and there's no redshirt issue. But the thing is they played 4 tight ends or Was it 4 or 3?
No, they only had 2 high cut snaps. You're thinking of
Um,
Jackson Aker they used as a tight end.
No, I'm not. I'm thinking of number 41.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Seagraves.
Seagraves. He played 3. You're right. TJ Seagraves played 3 snaps.
I thought it was a lot more than 3,
Yeah.
but now that you tell me it's more than 3, it just tells me they weren't ready to put or didn't think he's ready to go out there. I mean, you didn't see Grant Stack either, but I mean,
Yeah.
he seems like he's a total package kind of tight end, but I don't know what would McGowan have done or McGowan. What would he have done? Like all the offense that you saw. I'm trying to think of where he would have fit in because those tight ends were so integral to blocks and a lot of 2 tight end sets where he's he the kind of guy that you would see doing inverted wishbone stuff and pre-snap motion. Maybe he is eventually, but either that or he's like a field stretcher type of tight end. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess the only reason I put him on the list is I think it's notable. JT Seagraves was on this roster and was healthy last year, played snippets, and they brought in Jackson McGohan. Presumably, he's what, a third-year sophomore?
McGowan?
Yeah, he's a redshirt sophomore, right? And
I thought he was yeah. He was a redshirt freshman last year.
Yeah, so
yes,
it kind of makes you say, like the time is nigh. I feel like he's not. I don't know. I just feel like you would expect him to be ahead of a guy like Seagraves, but he's not. So I just think it was interesting. Dylan Jones and Darian Dupree.
Nicholas, intimated.
Yeah.
I think if they were up by 3 touchdowns going into the fourth quarter,
agreed.
You betcha. I will say this though, in that context, and we didn't mention it in talking about the offense. What did you think of the playing time and effectiveness of Cade Yacomelli?
Very functional and faster.
Did you expect to see that?
Did I expect to see it?
I did not.
I didn't.
I feel bad. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, you know what it is? I think maybe I was a little more expectant of, like, I guess they were going to cut the teeth of Dylan Jones or Darian Dupree. Like, I don't think both of them are going to play. I think they would have cut somebody's teeth in this game once they were up a little bit, and you wouldn't have seen Yacomelli really, or Aker for that matter. Although I think you would have seen Aker. Like, Aker has a different role.
Yeah, but Yacomelli was in during the first half.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, I think after that, if the game had gotten stretched a little bit, you would not have necessarily seen him in the second half. Like, I think
I see what you're saying.
Those 3 carries he had in the last, to run the clock out, that was going to be one of those freshmen.
Oh, absolutely.
If they weren't nervous at that point.
Yeah, no question. All right.
But yeah, so other ones, Ernest Willer. You didn't see him.
Yeah, kind of a bummer. I would have liked that, but who knows?
Tackett Curtis?
Yeah, that's a little bit interesting to me.
Sebastian Cheeks.
Same. Curtis is more interesting. Do you think Curtis is fully recovered injury-wise?
I think he's probably fully recovered injury-wise, but maybe doesn't quite have the scheme there yet. Because they're playing him on special teams.
Yeah.
So Cheeks and Curtis both played on special teams. But yeah, I kind of think that. But then my last one.
Well, he also seems like a talent too. Curtis does. Yeah. All right, go ahead. Yeah.
My last one is more just for fun. Johnny Smith, the kicker.
What the hell's that all about?
Well, I guess he was brought in to get Gavin Lom to really work on it because he had 5 kickoffs and 4 touchbacks.
And to the point, Gavin Lom did just fine.
Yeah, he did his job.
He did just fine. Yes.
But I do think it's funny they brought that guy in and he's not the kicker. So I don't know.
Gavin Lom would actually be on my short list for under the radar players.
Okay, so let's do that. Because we are
He's
taking.
Not like he wasn't a serious contender, but he was.
Yeah. Let's get to under the radar.
Look.
Why don't you tell? I have 2 guys, and I'm gonna let you go first, just because if you pick one of these, I'll pick the other one.
Mine sounds kind of lame, but I do think it's Aaron Witt.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean he didn't get that many snaps, but every single effective play they had, you're talking about not having a tackle for loss until the sack.
Yeah.
Like every single play where I saw him was one of those plays where they gained 1 or 2 yards. And he was always near the ball, I felt like. And he definitely was on the 4th and 1 stop. I mean, that was a lot of his work on the 4th and 1 stop.
Yep. Well, they left him uncovered. It was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. But even still, I mean, you still got to make the play. I get that, but you still got to make the play. But yeah, that's who I'd go with. And it's not really, I mean, it's cool to, the story too. I mean, it's cool to see him in there doing work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, last time anybody really saw him, he had 2 games last year, sort of, but you
Right.
had to be a real fan to know that he was on the field. Prior to that, dude, Graham Mertz was breaking a trophy after the bowl game.
Yeah,
That's how long
seriously.
ago that was. So,
All right. So I didn't have him. I had 2 guys, and I'll go with my, you know what? I'm going to go with this one because I think he may be an upwardly trending guy. When we were talking about wide receivers, and it's like they don't have the downfield stretcher, they don't have the big body guy who they can kind of lean on to get the ball. I think
no. I
this
do like
guy-
Bryson Green's body, though.
That's it.
Let me be clear about that.
Sorry. What I mean by that is they don't have someone to complement Bryson. Like, I think Bryson Green is actually I don't think he's a superstar, but I think he's a good wide receiver.
I think so
and
too.
He's doing his part. Like, he's catching
I'm
passes.
sorry. Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah. No, but
Good hands, yeah.
you're right to correct because I didn't articulate that correctly. But this guy was actually someone who was looked at through the progression. He was one of the few times that he was sort of the outlet receiver and found a way to sort of be open and do things. And I think he is going to play more because, and this kind of gives away who it is, he's a much better run blocker than he was last year. And he only played 38 snaps, but I think that is going to go up. And that is Tucker Ashcraft. Tucker Ashcraft caught 4 little balls. It was like 50 odd yards of receiving. I mean, it was nothing insane. But
2 of them were first downs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, sorry, he didn't even have 50 yards. He had 22 yards. My gosh, I thought it was way more. But,
by the way, too, did you see on that one throw into the corner of the end zone where Van Dyke was under pressure? It was one of his longer throws of the night at maybe 25 yards. Ashcraft was the target.
Yes.
So they do have him in mind to do that kind of work.
Mm-hmm. So I just think he actually kind of bailed them out in a few spots and he found a way to loosen things up for them a little bit on offense just when he was on the field that way. So I'm going to give it to him. Just to quickly sum up the other one that I was thinking about, just because I couldn't get over how much he played on the field. And quite honestly, he was the guy that I think Western Michigan targeted the most because they did not target Rico Holman. He had a big goose egg for targets.
He did.
Max Lofi. Max Lofi was in coverage a couple times downfield and was stride for stride and looked he looked superior to the wide receiver. He looked like he should against a MAC receiver.
Yeah. I'll give you that. He probably should have got called for that pass interference.
Yeah, maybe.
on that one, but
it was a little tuggy.
But you're right about that.
But Max Lofi, but he's not. Ashcraft is my true one. So let's talk big games in the B1G quickly because we're already over an hour. What do you have to say about Iowa, Max, and their 42-0 trouncing of Illinois State after starting 6-0 at the half?
Well, my son texts me and this is awful. He's at the game. This is awful. And then and I said, looks like a pretty typical Iowa opening game to me. They do the same thing every single year, no matter who they play. If it's Northern Iowa or it doesn't matter, it's the same thing. I get it. It's Illinois State. Illinois State is in the Missouri Valley. It's a tough league. It's the one with with a couple Dakotas in it. So, all right, fine. Then he texts me, oh gosh, halfway through the third quarter, I think it's still 3-3, right before they score the first touchdown. And he says, we bleep and suck. Just oh my gosh. And it reminded me just of so much that I heard on the talk around line and on Twitter on Friday nights and all the responses. It reminded me so much of that. So of course, it's Illinois State. I mean, it's not. Western Michigan is vastly superior to Illinois State, I'm sure. Okay. And they won 40-0. 40-0.
Yep.
Iowa's offense scored 40 points.
Nice.
Can you believe that? So then in the afternoon window, Nebraska, right before halftime, they're only winning 7-7. Excuse me, they're not even winning. It's 7-7. And they played against why am I blanking on this? UTEP. I mean, UTEP's nowhere near as good as Western Michigan is.
Right.
Nowhere near. And I did actually tweet it out that there's no way in hell Nebraska is even going to make a bowl game. I think they should fold the program, and I don't think I'm going to watch college football again. Hashtag eat at Arby's. So, of course, the final score of the Nebraska game was 40-7.
Yeah.
It's nothing to worry about, okay? Then it got so much juicier as the night went on. And Michigan, the defending national champion. Now I know Fresno State's probably the best non-conference opponent of all of these. I mean, Fresno State's a legit group of 5 playoff threat. Okay. They were about to score and make the game what, like 14-13 or something like that at the beginning of the fourth quarter, until Fresno State's quarterback makes a really, really bad pass after having a pretty darn good game. It's a pick six. Everything changes. Can you imagine the mood in the big house? I mean, I'm not on Michigan Twitter, but if it sounded anything like Wisconsin Twitter on Friday night, I mean, the sky had to be falling. And then what's even worse, the number 3 team in the country only beats Idaho by 10, and the game went to what, the final 5 minutes of the game?
Yep.
So yeah, I did the same thing. I think, Oregon, Michigan, they probably won't make a bowl game. I think those schools should just fold the programs. I mean, it's over. I mean, it's over. What do you get? It's over. So like, freaking relax. That's what I got out of the B1G. We have plenty of stuff to talk about. Obviously, there's lots of problems on this team, but at the end of the day, I mean, that's why you play the games. And if Oregon, like mighty Oregon, you've seen their roster, haven't you? They can only beat Idaho by 10 points. Idaho's not even Western Michigan. Idaho's a freaking independent, is it not?
I think they are. And I think they're looking at maybe going FCS, right?
They can't even, right. They can't even get into a conference. Right. You know what I mean? So I get it, but that's a lot. I mean, and the only other game that I really wanted to talk about was USC and LSU. And like, man, if you want to pull out your hair, go be an LSU fan in an opening game for the last 5 seasons. They took control of that game. And I think, relating it back to Wisconsin is kind of funny because the last team that LSU played, of course, was Wisconsin before yesterday night.
Right.
And I'm thinking here like this, obviously they don't have Jaden Daniels, obviously they don't have Malik Neighbors, but they got more talent than like Wisconsin does. And USC's defense is supposed to be terrible, and here they are. They can't do, like, go read what their message boards look like. Or if you followed the game, like, these teams were both teams that were supposed to have really crappy defenses, and those offenses couldn't do much until they made plays at the end of the game, especially USC. But I think watching USC, I don't know what that's, or how you feel about watching that game, because I think a lot of Badger Nation thinks like, oh yeah, I think there's a 50-50 chance. I think there's, I don't know. I mean, USC still has to play Michigan. What if they beat them? I mean, Wisconsin's going to play them after the bye, after Alabama, and USC might be in the top 5 and undefeated. That game's going to look a lot different than it does now. And everybody thinking that, I know it's USC, but, so I don't know. I thought, but as an aside, it was funny because I have a couple LSU friends, and one of them that I text a lot during games, and it made me, I said, I can't believe I have to root against a Big Ten team tonight. Which leads us to one of the games that you wanted to talk about, and that would be the first Big Ten After Dark game.
Well, there were 2 games that I found fun. I did find UCLA Hawaii fun, and I found Minnesota North Carolina fun for 2 very different reasons. I thought Minnesota North Carolina was fun basically because it was the first college football game of the year that I watched. Yes. from bell to bell, and it's
a lid lifter.
They were bad. Both teams are bad. And then North Carolina's quarterback got hurt, and then they're playing a quarterback who threw, I think, 3 passes in 2.5 quarters, and Minnesota still lost. Minnesota isn't very good, and that sorry to show Lackey Steve, but the New Hampshire quarterback is not good. I don't care what they say. I mean, he looked a lot like Van Dyke did, quite honestly. But the UCLA-Hawaii game was fun, more just to remind me that I'm getting old, and now I don't find that I have the time to watch football games that start at 11 p.m. Eastern time anymore, because I haven't watched a Hawaii home game in, I can't tell you how long, and it was like, wait a minute, where are they playing? This is not the Aloha Bowl. And it was like it looks like a Division II football stadium, but it's so cool. They're playing in some practice facility that has like 16,000 seats, but UCLA isn't very good. Like, UCLA is bad. It is interesting to watch. And
the stadium was kind of like, where Northwestern plays.
Yeah, it's got that vibe, but it is kind of cool just to see it. It would be very fun to go see a game there. But my big takeaway, I'm a little different than you. I'm not like wiping away week 1, like just waving
I'm
it
not
off.
wiping away either. I'm just not. It's not catastrophic for me.
No, it's not catastrophic, but my
Yeah.
closing thought on all of this is you need to see some kind of adaptation and progression next week against a not very, I mean, this is not a big opponent. You need to see
No, and I don't
something
care
big.
if it's a top 5 FCS team.
It's
I
an
don't,
FCS team.
I don't care. Yeah, no. This is no. This game shouldn't be much beyond in the third quarter. Like,
Yeah, I'm with you.
yeah,
Like it
no,
shouldn't
no,
be
no,
much.
I agree.
If you're asking me, I think at 23 minutes into this game, I should feel like it's over, like handily. But that's the way I feel.
23 minutes of game time.
Yes. So that's 8. What is that? 8 minutes into the second quarter. 7
So
minutes left to play.
midway through the second quarter.
Yep.
Let's say.
Yeah, that's where I want to be. I'm picking
Oh,
23.
I
as the
think so
number.
too. I think so too. Do we have a line yet?
I don't know. You know what? It's not important. We got to go, Max. We've got these people for over an hour now. Let them go home.
Oh, wait. I would be remiss, especially with the BONG, that my wife does want to point out that Illinois did win over Eastern Illinois,
Yes.
45-0. So there is that.
Yep, that's kind of part of the same narrative. But, all right, let's get out.
Sounds
of here,
good.
Max. We'll be back next week to discuss this. Don't forget, everybody, 347-77 Bucky. We're on a normal game week, so if you can get your phone calls in by, let's say, noon Central Time on Sunday to the talk around at 347-77 Bucky, that will help us get everything together for the show. Anything else on your end?
No, not at all. Just glad football's back, man.
Agreed. All right.
Yay.
Until the next time, everyone.
All right.
Enjoy the conversation? Head on over to buckaroundpodcast.com to find all the ways to connect with the show, links to our Patreon page, and feeds for every major podcasting platform. We want to thank each and every one of our patrons. You make this podcast possible. This has been The Buck Around, Badger football analysis from a fan perspective.